Heavy metal
My
rock.
global mind.
I'm Robert Cavuto, and today on My Global Mind, we are fortunate enough to speak with Joe Satriani to discuss his three upcoming tours in 2024. One is the Steve tour with Steve Vai, the G3 tour with Steve Vai and Eric Johnson, and then the best of all worlds tour with
Yeah.
Sammy, Hagar, Michael Anthony, and Jason Bonham. It's awesome. You're going to be a
Yeah. Yeah, when you say it like that, yeah, it sounds like I'm going to be really busy. Plus, there's the cruise. We have the Monsters cruise that's in between the G3 and the Satch Vai tour. So at least that's what my calendar says. So I got to follow
Oh my
that.
God. Was scheduling these three tours back to back planned in advance, or was it just a happy accident how they all came to line up so nicely?
Yeah, it's really interesting how it came about. It was really an emotional and artistic beginning
Mhm.
because I hadn't really thought about what we were going to do after finishing up the larger part of the Elephants of Mars tours. We did the US tour. We finally got back to Europe and finished that. But as things, right in between those two legs of the tour, my son Zizi called me and he said, that you've got this uh, anniversary coming up of G3, and it coincides with the very first tour that he did. He turned 4 years old just a couple of days before the very first G3 concert,
Mhm.
and we took him on tour that week, and that was his first tour. So that was the beginning of him joining the family circus
Yeah.
around the world. And he's a young filmmaker, so he wanted to make a film about uh, his life growing up around having a family like ours and being on tour and having this extended family of guitar players and musicians that span the globe. And he wanted it to sort of coincide with, I guess, his view of what I did for a living and our lives together and with the other musicians, and the fact that the G3 was having this reunion being talked about, but we hadn't really talked about a tour yet. So once I got ZZ and my agent, Wayne Forte, my manager, Morty Wiggins, all plugged in together, the creative juices started flowing as ZZ brought the film documentary idea to us. We thought we should go out on tour, and ZZ was thinking, well, I got to film the tour. And then all of a sudden he wound up, uh, with this idea of playing at least on one song during the show. So it's sort of grown into this thing. So we are making a live audio record. We're making a documentary.
Wow.
ZZ is going to be with us for the whole tour. He'll be playing at least on one song with us. And as that started to sort of coalesce, the idea, and I should point out that he's been around the world filming interviews with Brian May and Robert Fripp, some of the earliest guys that we've uh, had as part of the G3 as guests and regulars. Neil Sean, Steve Miller, Nuno Betancourt, Steve Vai, Eric Johnson, of course. All the players, John
Right.
Petrucci.
Right.
Uh, As that got together, we started thinking about, well, we should keep the tour going. And this is how the Satch Vai thing got started because Eric wasn't available, and Steve and I thought, we've never actually done this where the two of us go out
Yeah.
and just tour by ourselves. Um, and we thought, how crazy is that? We've known each other since we were kids. We should get to this before it's too late. So
Right, right, right.
that's how that thing got started. And then somewhere along the way, not too long ago, Sammy called me with that crazy idea about the Small Worlds tour. So anyway, I know you want to break it down into different questions. So
No,
I'll
no, all good.
there.
Like I just assume that Sammy Hagar calls you up and says, "Hey, don't make plans this summer. We're going to be touring." Is that something how it works?
Actually, he called and he said that he had this crazy idea and I was going to love it. And he laid the whole thing out for me, just the whole thing. He had
Right,
thought about, I'm sure he figured I'm not going to call Joe until I got it all worked
right.
out. And it was really good timing. And I thought it was a brilliant idea
Yes.
for Sammy to put together a tour where he could really address his entire career as a solo artist, playing with Montrose, obviously playing with Van Halen, a big bulk of his career. His continuing work with Chickenfoot, of course, the band we were in together, and the Circle, and the whole idea of doing it in the summertime, a lot and mostly outdoor venues, I just thought was perfect for Sam because I've toured with him before. I know how he lights up when you give him the right venue, and so the whole thing just seemed right.
That's awesome.
Then also, the whole thing about the last few years, I've been talking with Alex Van Halen, David Lee Roth about doing some kind of Eddie Van Halen tribute tour. That was sort of mind blowing because it was such a huge undertaking on my part to try to live up to the expectation of doing nothing but, you know, Mark One Van Halen, the David Lee Roth era, because David wasn't going to address anything that Sammy had done, which was odd. I think at least half, maybe more of Eddie's best work was post David Lee Roth,
The,
the kind
the
of
biggest
music,
hits, right? I guess you could say.
biggest hits, and just the complexity of the compositions were
Oh, wow.
amazing. And they were more mature. He became a bigger musician, if that's even possible to imagine. But he started to bring in more elements, and you don't really notice it because it sounds so easy. But when you go to play it, you go, "Oh my God, this is like incredibly hard
Yeah.
and intricate."
It's beyond
And
my thinking.
yeah,
I play guitar, but he was like, I was basic math and he was like, advanced calculus. It was
yeah,
just, he's never gonna, I was never
yeah.
gonna.
And it's crazy to think that Sammy figured out how to sing those melodies on top of it. That's what blew my mind when I really got into it. Because as a fan, you just enjoy the music.
Absolutely.
You take
Yeah.
it all in, you listen to all the parts all at once, and you go, "I love it. Sounds great. Feels great." And you have a good time listening to it. You listen to the lyrics, and they're inspiring. But then when you have to study it as a musician and pull it apart and say, "Okay, now what's my part?" That's when you really go like, wow, this is genius stuff here,
Oh, yeah. Yeah, and that's
Um,
why the legend he is. So on this tour with Sammy, you're going to be playing more than Van Halen?
oh, absolutely, yeah.
I wasn't aware of it.
Yeah, Sammy put out the poster at the beginning to announce the tour because he really wanted to let people know exactly what he had planned. And on it, he listed not all the songs, but a lot of the songs that we were going to cover. And he made a point to show right on the poster, hey, we're doing Montrose, we're doing Sammy Hagar, we're doing Chickenfoot, and we're doing all this Van Halen.
Cool.
And he's not shying away from the David Lee Roth era either. And he knows what the fans love, and he's done it before, and he's happy,
Yeah.
to sing those songs. So and so that's great. I just think that's from a guitar player's point of view, that's a really wonderfully balanced set. It's a bit of a nightmare as far as gear goes, and
Yes, I can imagine that.
what guitars and amps am I going to use and all that kind of stuff.
Tunings, different tunings, I'm sure too, right?
It is, yeah. The whole thing is going to take an army of people to help me get it off the ground. But I love the challenge, the whole idea of trying to do something that, you know, when the idea is given to you, you go, well, I can't do that, but I'd love to try, to live up to that expectation. So it's a great challenge.
Going back to G3, and I'm sorry for bouncing around a little bit.
All right.
Do you think after all these years of working with G3, all these different people that you've had come in and out of G3 for the different tours, does it still meet up with your original intention and blueprint of inspiring guitar players to play and to bring on that excitement?
Oh yeah, 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 without a doubt. I mean the one of the sort of the hidden energies of the show is the fact that there's two things happening. Each artist gets to take the stage with their own band and do their own thing. That's extremely important for just inviting players to come
Right.
to feel comfortable that they're going to get a chance to just own the stage, right? But then when we get together to jam, we're not doing each other's songs. So all this sort of entertainment business promotion competition, it all gets completely negated immediately and
Mhm.
turned off, and we don't even think about it. All we're really doing is thinking about when we were kids, what songs excited us to play guitar.
Right.
And that those are the songs that we always choose to jam on. And I would say that the secondary benefit of that also is that it's so easy city after city to invite someone who just happens to show up on stage because all the songs are very inviting. They're not 11-minute songs with intricate parts that you need to rehearse, you know. They're
Right.
easy songs that you can just join in and make your own, and they're very pliable songs. And so this I think is one of the key elements of it, keeping very inspiring to any generation
Yeah.
of players. Certainly, the people of our generation, they're going to be able to relate to it on a more personal level because they're sort of in sync with us and what we listened to as we were growing up.
True.
But also, younger players get to see how these older players worked it out and how we created excitement and created a musical moment.
Yeah.
Technique is always evolving, and you think back to like I remember when I was young, and I'd go to see Steve Miller at the Fillmore in New York City, and then I'd go and I'd see John McLaughlin, and then I'd go see George Benson, and then I'd go see Todd Rundgren. I never put one against the other.
Right. Just enjoy
Never
it.
said one was better than the other. I just thought this is so cool, all these different ways of using the guitar, the electric guitar primarily, to create these unbelievable, beautiful musical moments. And I think the younger generation today totally gets that. It's totally natural to them, and it's probably because the internet. They get every generation of filmed and recorded music available 24/7
True.
in a second. And so they they really are not biased by the media, so to speak, to decide what they like and what's cool and what's not cool. They get to finally decide for themselves what they like. And so that means that there's no barrier to liking any kind of playing from any era and stylistically from any corner of the artistic world out there.
True.
So this makes it a lot of fun for us when we're playing shows and we look out and there's all ages out there, and
It's very
it's
true. I saw you in 2018 in Newark, New Jersey with Phil Collin and John Petrucci.
yeah, great tour, yeah.
It was, and there was a lot of fathers bringing their kids, to see you guys, which is very inspiring. And that was a moment for me that was like, wow, it's passing the torch to the next generation, and this is how you do it, and this is, where you could aspire to getting someday.
Yeah, that was a great show. We had Glenn Hughes came out for that
Yes,
show,
yes,
and Alex Skolnick came out and played.
yeah,
Brilliant guitar
yeah.
player. Really a lot of fun. Yeah.
And I always meant to ask you, and I never had a chance. Was they were just in town, or was Glenn just in town, or was it planned?
No, Glenn actually flew out because he
Oh,
he joined us in LA. I think the LA show was prior, yeah, because that was like the first week of the tour,
okay.
and he lives in LA, so he joined us along with Chad Smith when we played at the Orpheum
Oh,
in
wow.
Los Angeles, and I think we did Highway Star, and then I suppose as we went on the tour, he just reached out and said, "Hey, I'm going to fly out. I feel like doing it again." So it was like, yeah, of course, you know. And I knew Alex was in town, and so he made the effort to come all the way out from Brooklyn and join us. That was really great
Yeah,
because
it was.
I've known Alex since he was a young kid, and he's just a brilliant musician. And that was the first time we got to play together on stage. That was fun.
Yeah, it was a big surprise for me when Glenn also came out. That was like, holy cow, what's just happening? And it was like really a surreal
Yeah,
moment. It was like, oh,
yeah,
this
yeah. Rock royalty right there. That voice. Wow.
he was tremendous. He did a tremendous job too. He's a talent guy. I love seeing him. Um, how do you make instrumental music, I guess from G3 or just with you and Joe, exciting for the people out in the audience?
Well, it's music, so it's got to be good. And
Mhm.
so you apply the same things that you would apply to any kind of music you were doing,
Mhm.
whether it was music for the forefront or the background or to have vocals added or not. That's the obvious point. I don't really need to mention that. I do think that each composer has got really good reasons for making an instrumental song more technical or less technical,
Mhm.
more show offy or less show offy.
Right.
It's all good. There's no good and bad. There are no rules to be broken. It really is cause and effect. It's very much like when I'm doing these G4 clinics and I'm trying to impress upon the students the importance of learning everything and all the scales and what they do. And it's not you have to learn them so you know what's right. What I'm saying is you have to learn them to know their effect on your audience, because that's
Mm.
all you're doing. I want this effect, so I use this to create that, to get close to that effect from the
Oh,
audience. And I can listen to something that's really progressive and fusiony, and I can say, I get it. That's what the effect they're going for. And then I can listen to something else that's a little bit more, what would you call it, alternative, independent minded, not so technically
mhm.
minded, let's say, and I totally get it because it's more like a mood. It's sort of like if you're listening to a Brian Eno instrumental from 30 years ago, he's not trying to show off his technical abilities, you know.
Yeah.
It's not Yngwie Malmsteen, but Yngwie's got a point, you know. Yngwie's making this point, Eno's making that point. So you really can't criticize or try to compare the two. So when I'm doing my stuff, because I'm generally just a rock and roll generation grown-up kid, trying to be a grown-up kid, I'm just looking for those moments that really rock out. I call them rock moments in my mind that I want to see these signposts come along in the song that really nail some things. I want there to be a super strong melody that allows me to say these group of notes, this way of playing, this is specific for this song and the meaning of this song.
Yeah.
This came up recently because when Steve and I were putting together this idea for a Satch Vai Tour, the idea came up to record some new music. So we thought, well, that's a cool idea. We're so busy, we don't know when we're going to do it, but we'll just say yes. We'll see what happens. So I wound up writing two songs, and yeah, Steve's working on them right now.
Wow.
And I took two. I had two different emotional takes on a place where in the same town where we grew up and went to school.
Mhm.
And so I wrote these songs about that particular place and our relationship to it and our history being there. And as I wrote, I did like a heavy version and a light version, so to speak. And the heavy version, I did kind of like the way that I just explained it to you. I thought I'm just going to make sure that this arrangement has these rock moments in it.
Yeah.
I'm going to make those rock moments reflect the kind of music that we liked when we were kids. Because I met Steve, I started teaching him when he was 12 and I was
Right.
15. So we were just little rock and roll snotty kids, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
But we knew what we liked. And so I put all those elements into this song, like there were these hits, these moments that would come. And when I hear great, Beatles and Rolling Stone stuff, the Who, Led Zeppelin, that's what I hear. I just hear these really great arrangements of chords, riffs, melodies, lyrics, all put together so you don't get bored. you know?
Yeah. Yeah.
And then if there's a technical bit that needs learning, then I make the song teach me how to play this new thing. That's the way I've always done it. I've never started with like, look what I can do. Now I should write a song around it to show people what I can do. That to me, that's like the worst way.
Wow.
That
Yeah.
you're gonna waste your life doing that because everybody learns all the technical stuff in 24 hours. Like if I do something, if I make something up and I post it on social media, there will be an 8-year-old kid somewhere in Azerbaijan who's
Yeah. Yeah.
figured it out and played it a little faster, you know? So, but that's, it's nothing wrong with that. It's just that it should remind musicians that the technical parts are the easy parts. They're physically hard and you have to have talent to be able to do them, but they're not difficult to get picked up by other players and assimilated into their technique.
Yeah.
So that it kind of deflates their uniqueness, you know.
Sure.
So like
Blood.
with finger tapping, you know, I mean, Eddie didn't invent it, but he capitalized on it. But then as soon as he turned around and showed people he was doing it, everybody else did it.
Everybody in the 80s was doing it.
So and the funny thing is when you do it, you sound less like yourself.
Yeah.
You sound like everyone else doing it. So there's another reason why you should try to avoid it.
That's
So
true.
what really lasts though is that great melody with either familiar or slightly unfamiliar chords, a really good beat, you know, a sound that matches the moment. Those things are they live on forever. That's why we still can listen to Link Ray playing Rumble and go, wow. Like forget about whether it's technically difficult or not, or it's a good recording. Just listen to that.
You
It's
know,
amazing.
do you spend a lot of time listening to a vocalist and trying to interpolate what's going on in what he's saying in the phrasing and incorporate that into your playing to make it
Absolutely.
melodic?
Oh, absolutely. Yeah.
Really? I didn't know you did a lot of that.
Yes. Oh man. When I was doing I can give you a really great example. I was one afternoon I was writing a song called Big Bad Moon, right? And I was struggling with the lyrics. I'm not a fast lyric writer. And I decided to take a break and there was an acoustic guitar in the room and I picked it up and I started playing and I tuned it to for some reason to an open F chord.
Right.
And all of a sudden, I started writing Flying in a Blue Dream. And I started to remember being a kid and having these flying dreams every night and how wonderful it felt. And so suddenly, wasn't supposed to be working on this new song.
Yeah.
I had just spent the hour constructing this big song. And I was thinking, how do you like, what kind of a melody works on this thing? And what got me really to understand what I had written I started to imagine that I was Frank Sinatra singing over this thing
Wow.
because I noticed, you know, when I was a young kid and my parents would play a Sinatra album, I'd listen to just the beauty of it. The orchestra it would always sound great, and Frank Sinatra sang in a very conversational New York American way, and I grew up in New York, so it was really easy to listen to
That's
him.
where I'm from, New York, New Jersey.
Right. So you know what that
Yeah.
his style was quite unique at the time. And what I noticed is very often he would have a song that he would start low, very conversational, like he just starts talking to you about something. And the story gets more complicated and more interesting, and the pitch goes higher and higher. And then when he gets to the chorus, it's the last line of this little story he's telling you, and that's the end of the chorus right there. And I thought that's so beautiful, that's so elegant. It's
Wow.
not like a guitar instrumental. And it's not even like a regular rock vocals because those weren't, you know, people had moved on from their popular music. But I was listening to that and I was thinking, this is really interesting. And I tapped into that and I started to play this melody and I just kept thinking about Frank Sinatra singing it and what he wouldn't do and how little he would sing and how he would use his attitude and letting you know with the sound of his voice and his pronunciation where he was from and to inform the words a little bit more to help describe the song and that's what I did and so once I finally finished it and I was like wow that's so different from anything I've ever written it's not Satch Boogie You know
Yeah.
what I mean? It's not surfing with the aliens. It's just this was a whole new thing. Um, and so that is something that is very important to me, the melodic content and how I go about it. I want to make sure that the melody is really strong, and it might be something as linear, like Flying in a Blue Dream, or with a song like Sahara. It's more broken up because the story is about someone who's a bit unstable and going through an emotional crisis. So there are these different sections.
Yeah, no, that's fascinating you do that. And a lot of instrumental guitarists don't take that. I don't think they take that into consideration. It's speed, it's technique, it's dexterity, and it's one of the integral melodies, I think, was one of the most important things in music to me anyway. And I think you incorporate that into instrumental and you make it interesting from that perspective.
I like doing that. And like I said, I understand that sometimes,
Not a shred fest.
well, yeah, sometimes any approach, if I'm being totally honest with myself, I remind myself that any approach can be wrong and
Hmm.
it can also be dead right. I remember reading an article with Jeff Beck many years ago. And they were asking him about a new record he had put out. I think it was called, was it Flash or something? I don't, it was when he, no, it was when he was doing something that was a little bit more techno oriented. And he made a comment disparaging arrangements that had big melodies. And I thought, wow, that's really weird. Like, why would somebody not want a big melody? But I, I very often I engage in a sort of a contrarian thought. I think, okay, I feel strongly about this. So what if I didn't? What if I felt just the opposite? How can I understand what this person is saying? So I got up off of this chair and I sat in the other chair for a second and I thought, okay, I think I understand what he's saying is that once you go down that road of trying to do a big melody, well, then you've got to finish it, and then everything has to work around you.
Yeah.
But once you abandon the idea of a melody, well, then you're a little bit more free. So then I could understand what he was trying to do. He was a genius, and he did whatever he wanted to do, and thank God he did. We all benefited from his attitude.
Earlier, you talked about writing the song with Steve. Are you planning to play that when you tour with him?
Yes, yeah, yeah.
At the
So
end, you're going to do like a jam, like at the end of G3?
yeah, we don't know when we're going to do it. We haven't really talked about it yet because we don't know how these things are going to turn out.
Right.
So I should let you know that, I composed the material because I had more time off than Steve did. And so I thought, well, I'll just start and then I'll send it to you and you do whatever you want with it.
That's cool.
Change all the chords, whatever you want to do. But we realized we needed a central person, a producer. So I asked my friend Eric Codieux to be the producer for the track and to help collate all the files that were going to be arriving from different places around the world. So right now, my two tracks are in LA with Steve. I think he just came back from Florida from his Vai Academy.
Mhm.
We have Matt Bissonette on bass, Matt Chamberlain on drums, and Steve, I think, is probably staring at his speaker, scratching his head, going, "What did Joe do?" And so we'll figure it out, and it'll be at least two songs. There might be a third one if Steve decides he wants to come up with something, and we've got time to do it. And we haven't discussed whether we start the show with it or end the show with it, but we'll figure it out.
Yeah,
But it'll
I'm
happen at
gonna.
some point. We're all going to be on the stage together.
I'm excited to see you in New Jersey in April. There's two. You're playing two New Jersey dates, so I'm going to come to one. I'll photograph. I'll review it, and I'm
Oh,
really excited when you guys come together. That's so a blending of two different styles coming together to do the one song. It's kind of intriguing and interesting at the same time. I find that fascinating.
yeah, yeah.
You
I love
you
violence
never
too.
sound like each other, but at the same time, you're playing different aspects of the same song to make it sound good.
Yes, yeah. That's the idea. Serve the song.
Serve the song, right? Question about the Best of All Worlds tour. Did you extend a formal invite um, to Alex Van Halen and to Wolfgang to maybe join for select shows?
Well, I mean, it's not my tour,
Yeah,
so I
I
was the last guy invited
yeah,
in on it, and but in talking with Sam all the time, Sam's really open about this, and he really wants to make everything good.
yeah.
That's his nature. So he has extended the invitation to both Dave and Alex to come out in some way,
Yeah.
uh, and they're always invited. So, and
That's good.
I think Sammy may have been talking to Alex for a long time about this. All of them in the band, in all the Van Halen bands, have been talking a lot because they've been remastering the catalog. So I mean, they've been in communication with each other quite a bit over the
Good.
last year or so because they've had to, put these. By the way, the remastering is amazing. It really
Yeah.
sounds great.
Is it
Um,
old stuff or new stuff or both?
it's all the old stuff they're putting. I think what they did is
I'm
they
sorry,
put
the Dave
together
era or the Sammy era or both? I probably should have said it that way.
both. Yeah,
Okay.
yeah,
Oh, that's cool. I'd like to see that. I can't wait to hear it. That's pretty cool. And I know that I want to be respectful to your time. I know that Sammy Hagar put you on the spot at Howard Stern show
yes.
and at Mean Streets. Because of that, do you feel that you have to play that song now on this tour to prove?
Oh, no, I don't know. I mean, it wasn't Sam. It was my own naivete, It's like I had no idea. Like when we were going to do that show, I remember saying to Sam, "Do we really want to show people what we sound like at 6 in the morning?" I said, "Plus, we've never rehearsed." I said, and I've avoided learning any of these songs for like 3 decades because I never wanted to sound like Eddie. So,
Oh my
and
God.
so, but Sam he has such a positive attitude towards life. He's like, "No, it'll be great. We'll just get together. We'll have fun." He said to me, he goes, "Howard's going to ask you about your artwork and about this and all this." And I said, "Okay, yeah, fine." So silly me, obviously it's not turning out like that. And Howard asked me that question, and what I should have just laughed and not played anything, but I was just being totally honest, maybe because I was so sleepy because it was so early, and I just thought, oh yeah, sure. I mean, I just felt like I was among friends, and I should, yeah, I'll show you what I've been trying to play.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
And but yeah, technically, I've got to work on that a little bit. But I thought it was, in the end, I thought, well, this is a really endearing moment because it really does show, you know, how amazing Eddie was. Because what I've noticed about it is that even when people rehearse it and they get it down, it just doesn't even come close to the magic that he put into every note. And it's a mental thing that you have to get used to. Like you have to tell yourself, I'm never going to get there. So relax and just learn the parts and then put your own thing into it because that's the only thing you can do. But yeah, that was a pretty funny moment.
And it's one thing to play it in your room by yourself, but it's another thing to play it with a live band too.
Yeah, yeah, yeah,
That's a whole nother scope of it. I could learn the
yeah.
song at home and then I go play with the band and it doesn't work. It doesn't sound good. It doesn't fit.
Doesn't sound, yeah. It's I was thinking as well, I should have reminded myself that because we were tuned to D standard for that show, which is really low. I was using a set of 11s, which are really sort of thick and clunky strings I wasn't used to playing. And that's not how you get the best sound for that particular song. And Eddie was a genius at rearranging his strings, his guitar, his amps
Yeah.
just to make something work. And that's where you realize, wow, it's not going to work on this guitar. Those harmonics just aren't there.
I, I
But
thought I thought that was
yeah,
about him too, with his playing. Like when you were a kid, if you didn't have the right effects pedal, you didn't have the right amp settings, you didn't sound, not that you wanted to sound like him, but you wanted to imitate what he was doing, and you couldn't
yeah,
because you didn't have a phase shifter, you didn't have a delay, you didn't have the right distortion. It didn't work. So I
yeah, yeah. How do you play White Room by Cream without a wah-wah pedal? How do you play
right.
any of those like Purple Haze without an octave fuzz? There's certain things that they just capitalize, or just distortion in general. If
Yeah, yeah. And you didn't have the money when you were a kid, and you didn't have the $90 pedal. You had the $25 pedal, and it was like it didn't sound right and it didn't work. So I
yeah,
totally empathize with you, not even thinking about the strings and the tuning and taking that all into consideration. So yeah, I get it.
yeah, it's something. What's funny is that less than a minute before we went live, I had three chickenfoot guitars that I had set up
Mhm.
with the strings, with that tuning. And my tech and I were like, wow, this is crazy. Let's see if it's going to work. And we just did a little test for the engineers to see what were going on, and immediately I broke a string. And I thought, okay, it's a good thing I broke it now, and
Yeah.
not when Howard comes on the air. So we immediately switched guitars, and I went to the other guitar. I think it was the Ray guitar, which was not the preferred instrument for what I was about to do. And so that's another thing that's really funny about how life works. You know, you
True.
get thrown some funny little curves,
It
but
is.
I was so happy that just to be on the show because Howard's great, and I was happy that he let us reach the audience and let them know what we were planning. You know.
That's great. Are you putting any extra pressure on yourself to nail all of the Van Halen parts down perfectly?
Absolutely.
Yeah, it's got to be a daunting task.
Yeah, it is. I mean, you know, often when I'm doing these interviews, I point to the board over there because I have this big board and I've got all the things that I have to do.
Yeah.
I try to keep organized so it's all written down in an order of importance. And those things, that's a bit lower on the list right now because I do have gear and stuff and guitars to get all worked out for next week's rehearsal for G3. And I've got the Monsters cruise, and then I've got the Satch thing, and we have to finish the recording. So
Yeah.
those things they're coming ahead of time. I do have Delana Scott at Third Power building what we all hope will be the ultimate Van Halen sounding amp for me, and I'm
Wow.
going to be taking a prototype out on tour just to check it for the months leading up to the summer tour. And so, you know, we've already started work on the technical side of it,
Yeah.
uh, you know, trying to figure out what's the best guitar, what are the best gauge strings for this tuning and for all the songs we're doing. Because again, you know, you want to be able to do Rock Candy and make it sound like Ronnie Montrose, but probably 6 minutes later, you know, I might be doing 5150. So it's that part of it, the technical part is a bit complicated, but I'm working on
When does
it.
the packing of the clothes come into play?
Oh, I'm not even thinking about that until like a
You
week
got to put that on
before.
your board.
Well, one thing's for sure, I'm not going to be wearing the kind of clothes that Eddie used to wear.
But you got to still pack. So you got to, that's something, put on that on your board. I'm
I
gonna,
am working out. I'm doing a few more push-ups every day to see if I can get down to that. I mean, Eddie was like, he had no body fat
yeah,
back in
yeah.
like 78. Like, that's amazing.
My last question for you. Will this be the closest that you think with Sammy that we ever get to seeing a chicken foot reunion?
Oh, yeah, I don't know about that. I mean, we've already talked about, I mean, I should, Sammy and I are already working on another Chicken Foot song. So,
Sweet.
uh,
That's
yeah,
great.
I don't know how, you know, how things would work out in the future in terms of touring. I do know that I still want to write Chicken Foot songs. I know Sam really does. He's just continually creative and
Yeah,
driven. Uh, but in the real world, I don't know how much time we have to, you know, to put together a tour. I don't know if there are going to be invitations for something like that. But I can certainly speak for myself and Mike and Sammy that we would love to do it.
yeah.
So
Awesome.
yeah, that part of it's really cool and exciting. So
What about Chad?
I don't know. Chad's been really busy with the Chili Peppers, and generally when you know when guys are in the band or in a cycle where they're really busy, we don't really bother each other. And but we can see that you know Chad's still booking these huge things. I think they just released press that they're going to be doing Bonnaroo. So yeah, I mean he's busy.
Well, listen, I want to thank you so much for your time, and I will definitely see you in the summer with Sammy, and I will see you in New Jersey with Steve. So I wish you the best, safe travels, and you have a lot of work ahead of you. I don't envy you.
It's fun. It's not work. It's not a real job, as I like to say.
Thank you. Thank you. My wife wants to say hello. She wants to meet you.
Oh, my
Hi,
husband,
how are you?
one of the best
Lisa.
guitar players ever.
Oh,
Nice
thank you
to
very
meet
much.
you.
Nice to meet you.
Awesome.
She's going to come too to New Jersey with me, and she'll check the
Oh,
show.
great. Well, I look forward to seeing you. Sorry to invade your living room there or wherever
That's
I'm looking at.
okay.
I kicked her into the other room.
He kicks me out. He moves me into all different rooms.
I know. That's what this
But you know,
invention has done. Yeah.
Well, thank you so much, Joe.
great to meet you.
Have a
Nice
great
to meet
day.
you.
Thank you so much.
All right. See you soon.
Bye-bye.
Heavy metal rock.
Global mind.